What's going on, guys? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's video, I'm going to run you through the daily habits that I did that built me my dream physique. If you never strategize how you're going to get to your dream physique, it's going to stay a fucking dream and it's never going to become your physique. I'm going to break down everything I went through and looked at in terms of building the strategy for my clients and for myself that we need to implement within a day-to-day basis or a week-to-week basis so that we can eventually get to our dream physiques. Before we get into what that looks like and I bring you guys through every step of the way, I want to remind y'all to do hard shit, be confident, have the courage to be uncomfortable, but most importantly, don't give a shit what anyone says about you. I'm going to send you guys to my computer now. All right, guys, I have y'all on my computer now. This is going to be your dream body broken down into daily habits. In this video, I have a whole chart here where I'm basically going to strategize or run you through what you need to look at in order to build the strategy that you need to implement on a day-to-day basis. I'm going to discuss training, so obviously in a perfect world, you wouldn't be training every single day. So this is going to be more so on a weekly basis, but for the sake of the video, breaking down your dream physique into daily tasks so that you can get there and it doesn't intimidate you or doesn't make you reluctant to start because it seems like such a radical transformation or such a big goal. I'm going to run you through everything I do in terms of figuring out how to come up with the best plan of action when strategizing how to transform your body. I do this for myself and for my clients. So this is literally the process that we run through to figure out what's the best way to approach ultimately altering your body composition, because building your dream physique, although in most cases, yes, it is a weight loss journey, for the most part, you're also building muscle at the same time. So really, they are all body recomposition journeys to some extent. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into this chart. It's a bit lengthy. I'm going to try to keep it short. So first things first, like I said already, we're going to have to work on losing fat and building muscle. Now, that's not easy. So before we start implementing training, nutrition, all that shit, we want to make sure that our mental strength, our mental fortitude, consistency, discipline, all those things are there because we will need them when shit gets tough. And it will get tough. It's hard. So before we do anything, we want to work on increasing mental strength because a lot of the times we're overweight or we are in a place that we don't like to be. It's because we are lacking in mental fortitude, maybe emotional regulation, discipline, consistency, somewhere along those lines. It's usually some of that paired with maybe a lack of knowledge or you just don't know what to do. And it's also affecting your consistency because you're like, am I doing the right thing? You don't know. So you're a little bit reluctant to be consistent because you don't even know if it's right. All of those things compiling up here make it very hard to approach this journey and to do these things. So that's why I'm going to do my best to break it down for you. So increasing mental strength, something that I say in almost every single video, choose the harder option. So AKA do hard shit, right? Right next to it. Do hard shit, choose the harder option. Do hard shit is more so like do things that you would never have thought that you could accomplish, right? Like some people don't even think that they can run a mile. Go run a marathon, train for a marathon, set these wild goals for you that seem so unrealistic because one day you will achieve them and one day it could be something that's actually reasonable for you. If you never set the bar high, you'll literally have nothing to aim for. You'd rather set the bar super high, aim for it, but then fall below it and you're still higher than where you started rather than setting the bar to some fucking mediocre level because you're doing easy shit because you're scared to fail or something like that. And choose their harder option is more so like there are going to be times on this journey when you're faced with the decision. 9 times out of 10, it's never a decision. One is the answer and the other is an excuse. So it's like, oh, I had such a long day. I only have 45 minutes. Probably shouldn't go to the gym. I'm not going to have enough time. I'm tired. You're going to sit there and contemplate, should I go or should I not go? You know what the answer is. You know that 9 times out of 10, to get the life that you want, you have to do the things that you're trying to avoid. And you coming up with that, perception that there is a decision, when in reality, you can either choose to do what you know needs to be done, or you can choose to prolong the results. So right there, it's kind of like not really a decision. So choose the harder option when faced with a decision or when you think you're faced with a decision, because 9 times out of 10, the harder option is going to yield results, bring you closer to your goals, and make you better, and also increase your mental strength. Do what you say you will. This has a lot to do with having that assurance in yourself. One of the most underrated feelings ever is just feeling assured and confident in yourself that you know what you're doing, and also doing what you say you will stops you from being all talk and no action. So when you say you're going to do something, when you discuss a goal, make sure that your actions line up with your words because you won't be able to trust yourself and have that assurance. You'll be constantly second guessing yourself and you won't be confident, period, if you can't keep your word to yourself. Every single day, if you choose the harder option, do hard things, challenge yourself, and you do the things that you say you're going to do, you will therefore, by default of just doing those 3 actions or making those decisions, increase your mental strength. Because 9 times out of 10, achieving any goal is a mental journey, and this is a goal, and it's hard, and it's not something that's easy. So your brain, as much as you may think it doesn't, does come into play when trying to build your dream physique, recomposition your body, or do literally anything that is difficult. So once we build Once we build mental strength, we will get into the increasing muscle growth and fat loss part of the journey. When it comes to increasing muscle growth and fat loss, this is exactly how I go about figuring out what the best structure would be for myself or for a client or anything like that. A lot of the times we think it's this yes or no answer, and there's only one way to go about doing anything, and there literally never is one way. There's a million different ways to go about things, but because maybe we're frustrated or insecure, we just simply don't know. We get confined to this one method of fat loss and muscle growth, and then we get into this whole like rabbit hole of the most optimal, when optimal is, in my opinion, solely contextual to the individual. Because when considering optimality, you have to look, is optimality even a word? When considering when considering peak optimal, what the ever the fuck the word is, when considering what is most optimal, you have to take the individual's lifestyle into consideration, right? You can't just apply what's most optimal to preconceived context that might not be applicable to said individual. First thing we do when we talk about increasing muscle growth and fat loss, after we've worked on understanding that we need to improve our mental strength, we look at our lifestyle. That's the first thing that I will look at. What kind of job do you work? Realistically, how much time do you have to go to the gym where you're not sacrificing sleep, rest, and you meet all your other obligations in your life? So look at your life. When do you have time to go to the gym? Do you have time to do cardio? What is your lifestyle like? When do you wake up? What is your work schedule? What are other obligations, whether it be family, children, personal stuff that you have that you must adhere to or that you're not going to give up? So once we look at your life, we can then start looking at your training structure. Training will come first, because when it comes to training, the number one thing that we're working against is time. Realistically, how much time do you have to be putting towards building muscle? So when we look at training, again, we revisit all those things that I just mentioned. So your work schedule, your personal schedule, your lifestyle, your obligations, all that stuff. Then when we understand about how many days you can realistically go without compromising sleep or rest, then we can build your training upon that, as well as your cardio. Both of those things kind of go in tandem. So, oh, why is this arrow not in the right spot? Sorry, guys. When talking about building muscle, we're going to have to resistance train, which is going to be lifting of some sort. Depending on how many days of the week you're training is going to dictate the way that you would structure your split. If you can do 5 days a week, you have so much more flexibility. Whereas, let's say you're going 3 days a week. Now, 3 days a week is not as much volume, obviously, as five. So maybe on those 3 days of the week, you're choosing majority compound exercises so that you can be hitting a few muscle groups with every exercise rather than starting off your lifts with compound and then getting into accessory movements simply because you only have those 3 days a week. So you're going to want to make sure that you're performing your movements as efficiently as possible. Also depends on your composition. Now, the problem with the whole composition thing, especially if this is a body recomposition or building your dream physique, if you're coming from a point that's basically anything other than not having any body fat, aka you're just too skinny or you're just trying to build muscle mass, if you're skinny fat or you are obese or you have any excess body fat, it's going to be hard to dictate what your true composition is or what muscles are under versus overdeveloped because you don't know realistically where your body is retaining a lot of its fat. So when building your split, depending on how much body fat you carry, you can look at your composition. I'd probably just recommend working on the muscle groups that you personally enjoy or want to accentuate because this is your dream physique. After you figure out structure with lifting, figure out the days of the week that you're going to lift and then figure out a plan that you're going to follow. Pick the muscle groups that you want to hit to come up with that plan as to how you're going to lift and what you're going to hit. Implement exercises, rep range, rest times, all those things, and keep them consistent on a week to week basis. Making sure you're tracking your progress, implementing progressive overload. And progressive overload can be seen in different forms, whether it's improved form, more reps, or more weight. So once you have your structure with your lifting, you can look at your cardio. This is also dependent on your time and how much body fat you have to lose. If your schedule only allows for you to do cardio for 15 or 20 minutes, then so be it. If you can do more, do more. It really depends on how much body fat that you have to lose. Obviously, the more that you have to lose, the more that you're going to have to do to get yourself back to that baseline. Cardio is going to be after training. It's going to be something that's going to be giving us leverage and fat loss, but it's not something that we're going to put at the forefront. We're going to use cardio and nutrition hand in hand. Usually people think that they need to have a lot of variety with training. The last thing that you want to do is have variety. You want to have consistency. So you want to figure out what that plan is going to be and repeat it week in and week out. After you have your training structured, that is when we're going to start to look at nutrition because nutrition is going to be built after we've looked at what kind of cardio you're going to be doing as well as the lifts. The first thing when you're looking at your meal plan is going to be your current state, physical and mental. So when it comes to the physical side of things, realistically, how much body fat do you carry? Are you skinny fat? Are you obese? Are you extremely overweight? The one thing that those three scenarios have in common is the fact that by definition, there is some form of body fat to be lost, which would entail that in all those situations, you will have to be in some form of a caloric deficit. A caloric deficit basically just means eating less than the amount of calories that you're burning, but the amount of calories that you're burning is dictated through what we've determined from training structure. So that's including cardio and lifting. That's why we have to figure out the training structure before we start to get into nutrition. Steepness of the deficit can be dictated by the amount of body fat that you have to lose. If you have a lot more to lose, then I would recommend going for a bit of a steeper deficit just to get you to baseline faster. Obviously, the more body fat that you carry, it's going to be harder for you in terms of your endurance and pushing hard in the gym and being able to train efficiently because you're carrying so much body fat that it's almost slowing you down, weighing you down, making it harder for you. So that's why it's going to be a priority to get that body fat off so we can get you to baseline and then you can perform efficiently in terms of building muscle. And then when we look at your current mental state, what is your relationship with food, with yourself, with the scale, with your body, all that kind of stuff? That's going to play an important factor, especially when it comes to consistency with nutrition. Probably also training too as well, or the journey in and of itself. After this is a mental battle, but a lot of people just try to focus on training, nutrition, what's optimal, all that kind of stuff. When in reality, doing this stuff is basically psychological warfare because it's not easy. Doing anything that is hard is a mental battle. So therefore, your mentality is at play. Something I'm going to reiterate in almost every video because I really resonate with it is the fact that you are trying to get from point A to point B, and point B being your dream physique. Since your mentality is at play, the boat is going to be training, nutrition, cardio, all that stuff, and you're in the boat rowing it and, paddling it and whatever with all your energy. If you don't patch those holes, the holes being all the mental issues that you're facing or the struggles or your negative mentality, you're going to be rowing extremely fast, putting in so much energy, so much effort, using this boat to get you from point A to point B as water is literally filling it up and making it inefficient. So after we go to your current state, we talk about food preferences. Now, I've noticed that a lot of people will put themselves on this like shitty diet, like terrible diet. And I'm like, this, I don't know, maybe you like this, but I definitely do not. Like, this is not something that I would adhere to, not something that I would eat. And then they're like, "Oh, I'm struggling sticking to my meal plan." It's like, well, you're forcing yourself to eat like freaking broccoli and like 2 pieces of chicken and you haven't had a carb in like 6 years. Like you're wondering why you can't adhere to it. You're making it unnecessarily hard. Like, yes, this journey is hard, but it shouldn't be hard because of you willingly making it hard. The struggle is doing it for a long period of time, even on the days when you don't want to, not forcing yourself to eat like a rabbit and not have a carb and, eat all these things without making it enjoyable. Figure out what your favorite foods are. Take a list of them, Whole Foods, and some of your favorite snacks too. When it comes to my clients, 9 times out of 10, I'm going to do the meal plan because I'm going to want to be as involved as I can when it comes to knowing what they eat on the day to day. And I am in contact with them often. So if there is diet fatigue or they want changes or they are not liking something, they literally have the opportunity every week to make those adjustments, make a request to me to change it. Once you figure out your food preferences, come up with a meal plan. Depending on who you are psychologically, if you can adhere to the same thing every single day and it saves you time in your scheduling and stuff like that, not having to think about it, build a meal plan that you're going to eat every single day. But you just don't have to think. Have those things on deck and a plan of action for when you do get busy so you don't have to think about it. If you are someone who needs variety, then I recommend writing up a couple meal plans that fall into that same macro constraint, or even just allowing yourself to have macro goals. So long as you get all your essential micronutrients and make sure you pay attention to your fiber and all that kind of stuff. After that, that'll lead us to having your full strategy. So now you have your nutrition, now you have your training. This is literally what I do with myself and with my clients, guys. I promise you it will work. Just sit down and do the work of building a plan and you'll get there. Like I said in literally last video, if you do not plan on how to get to your goals, that shit's going to stay a fucking dream. So once you have this full strategy of training and nutrition, you're going to want to make sure that you're tracking all your metrics because the only way to make things better or see if it's working is to track the progress. If we just go on a whim based on our head, we're not going to really know if we're truly progressing because 9 times out of 10, this shit's fucking lying to us. Implement the strategy, follow it consistently, give yourself enough time to be able to dictate whether it's working or not. It's definitely more than 2 weeks, guys. So promise me that you're going to do this and then try it for at least a few weeks to be able to see if you're truly progressing. When you track all your metrics, that's going to look at tracking things like the scale, taking progress photos, seeing if you're getting stronger on a week-to-week basis, if your clothes are fitting different. Mental wins like, not skipping the gym or showing up when you were tired or doing the things that you say you will, doing hard things, pushing yourself a little further each day, something like that. Those are all wins. So tracking all of those and not just, is the scale going down? Because I promise you, if you only look at that scale and you hyperfixate on it, you're going to become obsessed with it, develop a negative relationship with it. You're probably going to spiral and fall off this whole thing. So when you track all your metrics, you have a question to ask yourself: progressing or no change? Well, if you're progressing, then congrats, keep running it till you hit the no change point, until you hit a plateau or something like that. But congrats, you're progressing and you're changing and you're making progress. Keep running it until you can't anymore. Keep squeezing that orange until it's out of juice. But in the case that you do not see any change, running this for 4 to 6 weeks, even 8 weeks, um, making sure you're tracking all your metrics. When we get to the point where we're like, okay, nothing's changing, so then something must be wrong, and we're going to figure out what that is right now. So if you're not seeing a change, here are a few things that you can look at. No change, right? So if we don't see a change in composition, in weight, or whatever, we're not progressing. We need to do one of two things first: either assess our environment or assess our adherence to the strategy that we just spent our time building. So in terms of your environment can actually have a lot at play here in terms of if you progress or not, especially if you're lacking in the mental fortitude side of things. If you can make changes to your environment, then do so. Obviously, remove yourself from all the stressful situations that you can. But if you cannot, getting better at implementing things that can help you manage stress, whether it be supplementation or actual practices like journaling, diaphragmatic breathing, taking long walks, listening to music. I know they all sound simple as fuck in theory, but it's doing them day in and day out that actually do make you calmer, make you have a clearer head, and reduce stress and cortisol. And then the people around you, right? I should have made this a little bit different, but your environment will affect your adherence. All these things can be affecting your adherence, and that is the main point that I'm going to get to after I discuss environment. But the people around you, they encourage you towards your goals, or do they encourage you away from them? You surround yourself with two losers, you're going to be the third. So now, if it's not an issue with your environment, then we assess your adherence, right? So how consistent have you been? Have you been sticking to the plan? Because if you haven't been sticking to the plan, then you literally have no idea why you're not progressing. That's why I'm so big on tracking everything, being consistent, running it for a few weeks so you can learn what's not working or you can learn what is. But every moment that you take not figuring out what works or what doesn't, you're taking that time and wasting it being stuck. If you're struggling to adhere to whatever the plan is, we got to figure out why you're not adhering to it. Is it something that's psychological, aka something on the mental side, or something that's inefficient and it's making it hard for you to adhere to because it could be improvised, optimized, or made better? If it is psychological, let's revisit the mental strength department. Increasing those principles of mental fortitude, discipline, consistency, all those things, showing up for yourself, confidence, self love, all those factors. Because at the end of the day, like I said, when faced with a decision, 9 times out of 10, we know the right answer. The other one's just an excuse. The thing that I want to kind of highlight on the mental side of things, though, is taking a second to analyze and understand your behaviors as a human being. We have to understand our brains psychologically and how we operate and the things that we feel. We can implement that mental fortitude instead of sitting there and believing every single thing that happens. So understanding your brain as well as increasing your willpower, your perseverance, your mental strength, all that kind of stuff are going to be the two key factors when it comes to using your mentality as leverage here. But if it is not psychological and the root cause is actually something that's impractical or inefficient in the strategy, then we can look at making changes or implementing something so that it's easier for you to adhere to so that it aligns better with your schedule. So we will reassess the plan, see what we can do or change in exactly where you're struggling with adherence. So let's say you're not having enough time consistently each week to meal prep lunch because you have a meeting at the same time every day, and realistically the time window is not large enough. So then we will go ahead and reassess the plan and switch around your meal structure. Or let's say you're working out early in the morning and after you eat your breakfast, you're feeling a little bit sluggish. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and change your pre breakfast meal, maybe decrease the fat levels in there if there are any, or give you some quick digesting carbs to give you a bit of a heightened energy spike rather than slower digesting carbs. Because realistically, it's taking you a little bit longer to digest those carbs and you're feeling sluggish during your workout or you're feeling abnormally full. Or there's the adverse. You're working out and you're finding yourself crashing, implementing a few grams of fat to your pre workout meal just to make sure that you have energy from carbs, but also implementing a few grams of fat so that energy is long lasting and you don't experience that crash. Those are a bunch of different little things that you can implement to your plan to make it more efficient if the issue is actually something that's impractical or inefficient when it comes to the root cause of why you can't adhere to it. And then after you assess the plan, you keep rerunning it and revising the plan until you hit the progression part. Now, the reason as to why we never reach this point or we never get there is because all of us are impatient. And I say all of us, including myself. I know what it feels like to sit there and be frustrated and insecure and to constantly want to change the plan because I'm so worried that it's not going to work and because I'm impatient, because I'm so unhappy with where I'm currently at or the way that my body is currently right now or my mindset or my mentality or I feel like shit about myself. Whatever it is, guys, I promise you, you're going to hear all those things. All those things in your head are going to make you want to change things so that in the moment you feel better because you're like, oh, I'm gonna try this, I'm gonna try that. But it's like that like shiny object thing where it's like everything seems appealing because you think what you're doing isn't working. So you're gonna keep jumping and jumping and jumping, but you're never gonna progress towards anything because you were just trying to make yourself feel better in the moment. And everything feels better on day one. Everything feels better when you first start. But when you stick to it, you don't immediately see progress, then you're gonna want to go chase the next big thing. You're gonna be at day one of everything you've ever started because you couldn't stick to something, whether it be due to the fact that you were insecure, you were worried that it wasn't working, you couldn't be consistent because you didn't know if you were doing the right thing. Guys, I've been there. I know what it feels like. If there's one thing that I could tell y'all to do, it's to build a plan based on everything that I just laid out for you in this video. Stick to that plan for a longer period of time that you may think. That way you can figure out if it works or if it doesn't. If it doesn't work, keep revising the plan and running it until you find out what does work. With that being said, guys, that is everything that you need to do and look at within yourself to be able to build a strategy that you need to follow day in and day out and on a week-to-week basis to get you to your dream physique. If you want to work with me one-to-one, I will leave the link to the application in the description of this video. If spots are available, I will be personally reaching out to you guys. If you want to see more of me or personally message me, I will leave the link to my Instagram in the description as well. I'm more active there. As always, do hard shit and be confident, but most importantly, if you're contemplating starting, start now. Don't waste another second. Start where you just don't want to be. Life is too fucking short. You can't save time. You can only spend it. So quit freaking wasting it, guys. I love y'all so much. I appreciate you guys. I'll see y'all in the next one.